This is a description of the resonance experiment and how you can get involved with it. My name is Jaz Russell. I'm the creator of the experiment and the technology behind it, which is designed to help people discover their purpose in life, their path, and find ways of nurturing synchronicities and other opportunities to make it all happen. Now, the resonance experiment is something that's based on some really simple principles. The first thing it's based on is getting you to just visually map your needs in your everyday life, literally to see the weather of your life and see whereabouts you need help and whereabouts you think you're doing okay. Just in case you don't know or you're not sure, the technology can actually show you, based on the questionnaire that you filled in and how you've mapped out your needs, it can literally read between the lines of your needs and determine what might be your path in life, what might be the purpose that you are trying to align yourself to, and what are your priorities on a daily basis. In addition, it looks at how you could connect with other people and learn with them in a social way, so that you can actually get the support, the challenge, and the reflection that you need for yourself in order for you to stay aligned to your path and fulfill your purpose and manage your priorities for your daily life as well as your life overall. In doing this, if you can get aligned to your path and to your purpose, and you do it with others, then it's possible literally to shift how the whole of humanity is actually being in the world right now. You can literally shift the resonance or the vibe of humanity. Now, the questionnaire that the whole process starts with asks you some questions around your needs. The typical needs that most people have to attend to are things such as their grounding, in other words, what are their values, what are their morals, what are their things that they're mindful of, what are their standards that make them feel really alive, what are they authentically about deep down within themselves, what are they aligned to. The second need that's typically really important is your physical needs, things like your basic needs for survival, your sense of security, your physical well-being and health, your welfare, whether you have a roof over your head, shelter, safety, and other things including things such as wealth, your income, and your work. The next thing up on the list that people logically will tend to go and pursue in terms of their needs is their emotional needs. Self-esteem, partnerships with other people, and this includes this area, the subject of healing and also teaching, because real teaching is about exchange of things from the heart, not just from the head. The fourth area that's important is how we look at the world, our worldview, our perceptions, whether we think logically or intuitively about situations that come up in our lives. Last but not necessarily least is the area of our meaning in life, often associated with spirituality, our religion, or our creative expression, perhaps through writing or art or drama. This also includes our sense of purpose overall in life and our ability and choice to be of service in the world. Now, when people are moving through these needs in this order, with this order of priority, starting with their values and morals and authenticity, and then working up to meeting their physical, emotional, intellectual and creative needs, that's what most people will tend to do. That's a very logical way of pursuing needs in life. It's normally associated with the path of what people call ascension. It very much starts with working with the real world, what's going on the outside of us, the external world, if you like, the world that's got things in it that we operate by according to the evidence that we see. It's to do with really the reality that we're mostly familiar with every day outside of what's going on inside of us. Now, some people don't follow that route. Some people don't follow that logical path through life. They follow a different path. They may feel that the most important things are not necessarily what's happening in the real world and what happens through what they discover through evidence or what's going on in reality. They may be more concerned with what's going on inside of them, internally. They may be more focused on their experience and their imagination, and taking things that they have a creative or spiritual alignment to and bringing those into the world. Maybe clarifying their perceptions and worldview on it, emotionally putting themselves behind what it is that they're envisioning or imagining, and then eventually maybe physicalizing it and bringing it into the real world. People who follow this route are on what might be called a descension route. And that's not a bad word, it's just a different direction to ascension. It's more focused on an intuitive pursuit of needs. People who are very focused on reality often will be reluctant to get their imagination involved in advancing themselves. On the other hand, people who are following their intuition might be reluctant typically to take what they're doing and get real about it. So both paths have their pros and their cons. What matters is the path appropriate for the purpose that you've chosen for your life. Not all of us are absolutely logical or absolutely intuitive. We tend to be mixes of these things. We might, for example, be intuitive about our emotions, but we might be very, very logical in terms of meeting our physical needs. So it varies with different people, with different mixes of logical and intuitive kind of influences and drives and motivation. The questionnaire asks you questions about each of these areas, and based on your scores, it can actually figure out what proportion you're logical, what proportion you're intuitive, and in which needs you're being logical and which needs you're being intuitive. Based on that map of you, it can help you find others who will fill in the gaps in your life, and maybe who you can fill in the gaps for too, in terms of what they've got to learn in life. Now, the questionnaire does ask you about those 5 areas of need, but it asks you questions in a very particular way. It asks you questions about how good you are at helping yourself in meeting those needs, and it also asks you another set of 3 questions to do with how good you are at helping other people meet those needs. So there's a component of learning which looks at who you're actually learning with, whether it's yourself or whether it's with other people. Within each question, you'll also find a component which is asking how you're actually learning, whether you are tuning into things for the first time and how good are you at doing that, how good are you just experiencing things and knowing things without necessarily doing anything about it. That's the first stage of learning. It's the first stage of emotional intelligence, if you like, that you will typically engage in order for you to learn something. You'll try and tune into it, experience it and know it. Once you've got to experience something and know it, if you're following a logical path, then probably what you'll do next is try and put some things into practice and just try and refine what you're actually doing over time with regards to your skills and your practice. There will come a time when you will notice that maybe what you're doing, maybe what you're practicing, it isn't working anymore. It's not as effective as it used to be. And that's usually the time when you probably want to innovate and try something new, build and develop your skills and look at the ones that have kind of reached their expiry date and see what you can do about evolving them and expanding from them. So those 3 stages of emotional intelligence based learning are typically what most people go through when they're following a logical path through life. Now, when they've usually finished with themselves in terms of meeting their own needs, they usually will then also go on to then focus on helping other people with their needs, helping them to tune into things and to practice things and build and develop on what they're actually doing. So that's what you might call a very logical way of going through life, learning to meet your own needs by tuning into them, practicing your skills around them, and occasionally innovating when things need to kind of have an upgrade, and then repeating that process with other people. That's the logical way of learning through life. Intuitive people, however, they tend to do things the other way around. They tend to pick up stuff from other people, and they don't necessarily have an experience of it first. They might already have an idea of how things need to be different, how they need to be innovative, and then they might find a way of putting things into practice, doing some test cases, pilot cases if you like, and then one day further down the road they actually get the experience of what it was that they were envisioning. Now, they very much tend to do this in the reverse order from logical people. So often you'll find them helping others first and learning from what they are getting in their experiences with other people, and then eventually applying that back to themselves and helping themselves. So logical individuals tend to help themselves first and then go on to help others. Intuitive individuals often tend to pick up their learning from other people and eventually apply what really works back to themselves. Now, if we take the 5 areas of need and we take the 6 questions, 3 to do with yourself and 3 to do with other people, and we combine them, then we end up with 30 questions. You end up with 6 questions for each area, 3 to do with yourself and 3 to do with other people. And overall, that amounts to 5 times 6, which is 30. And that's how many questions there are in the questionnaire. Each question asks about a different combination of need and also emotional intelligence in terms of helping yourself or helping others. Now, take a good look at this grid, because what's actually also done is the scores that you put in for how well you think you're meeting a particular need can actually be put in the boxes here to do with each of the needs that you're being questioned about, and the numbers can actually be converted into colours in a paint by numbers kind of way, and through that you can get a kind of heat map or weather map of your life and how well you're doing in different parts of it. So here's an example of that kind of weather map. You can see what's been done here is the scores from someone's questions on how well they're meeting their needs in that area have been placed into that table, into the relevant places, and then the scores have been converted into colours. The lowest scores are coloured red, the highest scores are coloured blue, and the in-between scores are coloured yellow and green. It just follows the colours of the spectrum: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, in that kind of direction. Now you can see that apart from obviously seeing where your areas of lowest performance are, if you like, in your life, and where your highest areas of meeting your needs, you can also see that there are these white spots on the image as well. Now, these white spots are quite interesting because of the way the colouring scheme is done. They actually highlight where a lot of scores are similar to each other. For example, there might be 2 7s next to each other, for example, or a whole group of scores which are very similar. In those situations, that highlights areas in your life where you're doing things unconsciously. Often it highlights habits. If the white spots are in areas of blue, then there's something going on that's unconscious, that's a habit, that's obviously giving you a high score, so it's probably something that's quite good in terms of helping you meet your needs. It's probably what you might call a good habit. You might, however, get spots or streaks in areas of red, which means you've got a habit or something that's going on that's unconscious, that's actually leading you to not be so good in meeting your needs in that area. Therefore, it's probably a habit which is not serving you very well. Now, when you take into consideration just these 3 things, looking at where you have your lower limits to meeting your needs and your upper limits to meeting your needs, and where your habits are, it's possible literally to get a sense of the weather of your life, where there are storms, if you like, where there are sunny spots as well. Now, from a static picture, it's not really possible to see the movement of things in your life, but of course you could do this over several days, and you could kind of stitch the images together, and in a flipbook kind of way you could see how the colours migrate and move. You could see weaknesses moving from one part of your life to another. You could see strengths also moving from one part of your life to another, and of course you can see habits move from one part of your life to another. Now, this is really useful in order for you to keep track of where you're getting stuck in life, where you're moving forward, and also where you might be heading for a degradation of your ability to meet your needs. Here's the same picture with the numbers overlaid on top of the actual colours, so that you can kind of see where everything relates. So as you can see, the areas which are red are overlaid by the lowest scores of 6, and the areas that are blue are typically covered by the highest scores of 9. Now this image, you can't really tell whether an area that you're doing well in or not is down to you doing things in a logical, structured way, or whether it's because you're just kind of going with the flow and doing things intuitively. So this is simply showing you where you're doing well and where you're not, according to the scores that you've given. There's no interpretation involved here. It's literally just taking your scores and just converting them into colours. So this is really a mirror of what's going on in your life inside of yourself, and you can't really argue with it because you've obviously put the answers there yourself, and they're a measure of how you're actually doing. Now here's an example of the finished product that you can get on the Energy Diamond website, and as you can see, you've got the same image and it's labelled on this occasion. You can see the top half is to do with what's going on within you and within other people, and the bottom half is to do with how you deal with your reality and how you help other people with their reality. The left half of the image is to do with how well you're helping yourself, and the right half is to do with how well you're helping others. So it's quite easy to make sense of where things are going well and where things are not. Just to give you a bit more detail, on the right hand side there's labels to indicate what each layer of the image is about, whether it's to do with your emotions, whether it's to do with your intellect, for example, or your security. In this picture you can see that along the line of emotion with other people, and also to some degree how this person helps themselves, that they feel that's the area where they're least able to meet their needs. Now, although it looks quite bad because it's all red, the reality is that the scores here for red come to a score of about 5 or 6. So it's not terrible, it just represents the lower limits at which this person is able to meet their needs. On the left you can see a summary of all the key areas to do with a person's psychology and how they are with helping other people with their psychology, their interpersonal psychology if you like, and how they're dealing with reality and how they're dealing also with other people's and helping them. Usually the area that scores the highest is highlighted when you first come in and see the image, and by clicking on any one of the areas listed on the left, it's possible to get a little explanation of what that area is actually about. Now you can just do your profile every day, your questionnaire, and get this image come up and just see how you're doing for the day and make changes where you feel it's necessary. Often though, you can't see the trends of things that are going on in your life, and what would really be useful, as I said, is to perhaps do this on a regular basis and stitch the images together so that a movie is created of how your life is actually flowing. Now the Energy Diamond technology does actually have software which can do that for you, so you can literally watch an animation of your inner weather, what's going on in your world, and maybe you can even make a prediction, make a forecast of where things are going to end up, whether opportunities are going to emerge, whether challenges are going to emerge, or whether there's some things that you need to perhaps reflect on in the near future. In addition to your needs being mapped and you being able to clearly see where you're doing well and where you're not, just to help you, the Energy Diamond technology can read the map, analyse it, read between your needs, and kind of make a sense of what maybe your priority should be for your life on that day based on the kind of path you might be following. The technology is something that's smart enough to figure out what kind of path you might be following, whether it's a logical path overall or whether it's something that's more intuitive. And based on that, it can help decipher what your priority might be for that day in order for you to get aligned to your path and maybe even work towards your purpose or your life meaning, which is also indicated here. So if you check out your priority every day and use it and work with it in order to achieve your purpose for that day, then you'll find that you'll become aligned to your path in life, and eventually you'll find that also synchronicities and coincidences will start to happen to support you, especially if you are doing things for yourself at the right time and doing things with other people at the right time too. Just to give you a bit of help here, all your scores are added up, and out of the maximum score you could have given yourself, it's worked out how much of a percentage of the maximum you actually gave yourself. The VQ score is the vitality quotient score. It's literally the intelligence with which you're managing all your energies, all your needs. And it's the intelligence with how alive you are actually being in terms of meeting your needs. It literally is about the intelligence with which you meet and manage your vitality. So just like intelligence quotient, IQ, VQ is a measure of intelligence of how well you're managing your vitality and how alive you're actually being every day. It relates to your skills in meeting your needs, and if you'd answered 10 for each answer to each question, there's 30 questions, you would have scored yourself 300 overall. That would be 100% of the skills you feel that you need to meet your purpose in life, you would feel that you actually have. In this instance, you can see someone scored less than the maximum. They've actually scored 75% of the maximum. The score, 75%, it relates to a couple of things. It's basically saying, in this instance, this person feels they've got 75% of the skills they need in order to tend to their life's purpose and meaning, and to be able to do things that they need to on their path through life. However, just because you've got the skills, it doesn't necessarily mean you're putting yourself behind those skills in terms of commitment. Some people only put 50% of their effort and themselves into their skills, and as a consequence they don't really get the maximum impact they could in the world. So if you combine a person's commitment with the skills that they've got, then it's possible to figure out what the resultant impact is that they might be having in their life. For example, if the VQ is 80% and the alignment, which is how much of your real self are you putting yourself behind your skills, was 50%. 50% of 80% is 40%. And that's actually the impact that you're making in the world. So in this example, you can see the impact this person is making is 27%, which is 35% of 75%. Now, given a choice, if there's one thing you need to improve in order to get more impact in the world, it's probably better to change how committed you are. Anybody can upgrade their skills, but not everybody can upgrade their commitment or their alignment behind what they're actually doing. It's the most difficult thing to align and work with, but once it's done, it actually proves to be far more powerful than just upgrading your skills. So if you were going to be employed by somebody, you'd probably be employed based on your level of commitment, despite the fact that you might not necessarily have all the skills that's needed for a job. So always try and nurture your commitment and alignment before you try and improve your skills. Without alignment and commitment, most of your skills get really diluted and lead you to having no impact at all in your life. However, when you're really resolved to put all of yourself behind something, then of course that's when you make the maximum impact in your life. Just to give you a measure, at the bottom underneath the impact, it gives you some information looking at how many more times effective you could be in your life based on the figure in the impact percentage. If you're at 27%, obviously compared to 100%, 100% is 3.8 times better than 27%. It's almost 4 times better. That's what's possible if you were to improve your skills and get aligned to the right ones. Now, some people have compared this to money. They've said, well, if you take the biggest salary you've ever had and multiply it by about 4, then that's what's possible for you right now if you could get yourself together and commit to making the most of the skills that you've actually got. So whenever you look at the dashboard on the left, the needles, it's always good to ensure that your alignment, your commitment is ahead of your skills. So the green arrow is something that should always be behind the arrow to do with skills. Now, in this example, you can see that the alignment here is 35%, and it's below what it should actually be. It should actually be ahead of the VQ score. Remember what I said. If your alignment and your commitment is greater than your skills, then anything is possible. You can always learn a skill, you can always upgrade your knowledge. However, if you don't have much commitment, then it's unlikely you're going to bother trying to improve your skills or improve your knowledge at all. And it's unlikely you ever go on to make any real dent or difference in the world in terms of an impact. So always try and make sure that your commitment is greater than your skills. On the dashboard on the left, you should see that the green arrow is always ahead of the red arrow. Now, once you've got a clear picture of what you should be aligned to and what the weather is like in your life, it might be useful for you not just to work on your own, but to find other people who are similar to you that you can relate to, people who are complementary to you, who are a mix perhaps of similar and opposite qualities that you can also reflect with, and people who are opposite to you, who are going to stretch you and improve your capacities. In business, you can improve your service if you find people who are similar, complementary and opposite in terms of customers and employees and partners and suppliers, for example. And in your community, it's possible to get people from very diverse backgrounds to begin to help each other out and to have the community grow and flourish and become enriched. When you do your questionnaire and profile, apart from being able to see your priority, your path and your purpose, and seeing how well you're doing in terms of your alignment and your skills, it's also possible, as I said, to find those people who might be similar to you, complementary to you or opposite to you. So in the Social DNA Matches link on the Energy Diamond website, you'll see all the people who've also done profiles like you, who are similar to you in terms of their learning, who are opposite to you in terms of their learning, and they might have strengths, for example, where you've got weaknesses, and vice versa. And you'll also see lists of people who are complementary to you, people who are a mix of similar and opposite qualities. Now really, every day you ought to be connecting into at least one person from each of these lists. You need to get your 3 a day in terms of support from people who are similar to you, challenge and to be stretched by people who are opposite to you, and to get some reflection from people who are complementary to you. People who you like and you begin to resonate with, you can bookmark them and you'll find that you can access them even if they don't appear in your lists anymore. You can check people out who've done their profile on the same day, who've done it in the last week, or who've at least done it in the last month. Or you can just look at all the profiles that are currently active, however old they are, however new they actually are. If you see someone and you feel that there's a strong match there based on the numbers that are given and looks like they're going to be in sync with you that day, then by all means send them an email using the envelope icon, or link to them. Jump off from this site to their Facebook page or their MySpace page or LinkedIn page, and maybe follow them on Twitter. There's an option for you to do that too. Now here's an example of someone who's similar to another person, and if you look, you can see that these images are different from the ones that you saw earlier. It's the same image, but it's unwrapped to show logical and intuitive tendencies, almost like a left brain, right brain NMR image of this person's life. So the left side is how they deal with things logically in their life, and where it's blue it means they've got a strong logical tendency to do things, and where it's red it means they're not so logical there. On the right hand side is how they deal with things intuitively. Where it's blue on that side, it shows that they're quite intuitive in that area of their life, in meeting that need, and where it's more red, it shows that they're not so intuitive. Often you'll find that both sides are opposites of each other. Where it's blue on one side, it tends to be red on the other. Obviously, if you're intuitive in a very strong way in a certain part of your life, it's not likely that you're going to be very logical in that part of your life, and vice versa. You do get occasions where the colours are the same on each side, and that usually means that person is acting in a whole brain way in their life with regards to that particular need. If they're both red in the same area on the left and right, it means they're being whole brained in a quite a low way. if it's quite blue on both sides in the same area, it means they're being very strongly whole-brained in how they're meeting that particular need. In this example, you can see two people who are similar to each other, very similar, and you can see that the areas of blue and the areas of red and green, they tend to be found in the same places. So these two people probably learn about things in life in a very, very similar kind of way. They've got the same strengths, they've got the same weaknesses in the same areas. Here's an example of a couple of people that are completely opposite to each other, and in this case you can see they're 85% opposite. Typically where one person's got blue, high scoring areas, the other person tends to have low scoring areas. That typically means where one person's got a strength, the other person's not so strong, and they could help that person who's not so strong in that area, and vice versa too. The other person might have strengths where the first person's got difficulties, and they might be able to help in return. Now, because they're very different in terms of how they go about doing things in life, it means socially they might not get on, they might not like each other, but there's obviously a lot to learn from one another if they could be mature and work with one another's differences. Last but not least, there's the people who are a mix of similar and opposite qualities. Now in this diagram you can see that there are some places where the colours are the same in the same places between the two different people, and there are some places where they're different. And this mix of qualities is really good to be used for reflection between people. So if you want to think about what kind of support you need or challenge you need in your life, and you want to consider options and have some reflection, it's usually good to hang out with someone who's complementary to you. In fact, most people's best friends tend to be complementary, according to the research that we've actually found. Best kind of mentors usually tend to be complementary too. However, to get a really healthy social networking diet in your life, you need to get all three influences every day or regularly. You need to get support regularly, you need to get challenged regularly, you need to get reflection regularly. So by meeting similar, opposite and complementary people, you get all three of those kinds of nurturing. You get your 3 a day. You get your 3 a day social vitamins. That's what each of these influences is called. Support, challenge and reflection. They're each social vitamins, and there's 3 of them. And if you get your 3 a day, then you get to grow in life, and you get to make a difference to other people in the process, and you get to make the world a better place too. Now, just to finish off and give you an indication of what's possible, consider something that happened in 1993. There was an experiment done with 4,000 people who all gathered together to take part in a meditation. Now, it was done in Washington DC, which has got a population of about 7 million people. And what was interesting was, during the time of that gathering, violent crime across the city dropped by 23%. And there's a link there for you to go and check that out in terms of the exact information. But the question is, why was it only 23%? Why wasn't it more? Well, because despite the common intent that people actually had to kind of try and bring peace, if you like, to Washington and calm people down and make them more mindful and centered, that was their intent. Everybody who was involved, of course, was coming from very different directions in life, and of course, if you're coming from very different directions, it doesn't matter if you've got a common intent. It can mean that the energy of what you're doing can be diluted and not be as strong as it could be in terms of its impact. So I thought some time ago, what would it be like if people came together with a common intent, but also they came together with complementary life paths. So instead of being a torch, they could be more like a laser in terms of their effect and their impact on themselves and the world around them. Now consider London. It's got a population of about 8 million. According to the same statistics, it would need a minimum of about 300 people to affect the whole city. Now, the interesting thing is that's just based on people having a common intent. However, for people who are perfectly aligned in terms of complementary intentions and their life paths are complementary to one another, you wouldn't need 300. In fact, it would only take 17 people who are perfectly aligned to one another's paths in a complementary way and intentions to affect the whole city of London. to affect the whole of the UK, it would only take 28. And to affect the whole of humanity, the whole world, it would only take 98. Now, you might think, well, how do you work out those numbers? It's not linear, it's actually something which is known as logarithmic, even beyond exponential. So, when people combine their intentions and they are working through life paths which help each other, then you don't need that much energy to shift their lives and the worlds that they actually live in. So if you can get aligned to your path and get really present to your own purpose, and you can perhaps find the small group of people whose complementary intentions and complementary paths you share, then you're going to find life for yourself. You're going to become much more alive. You're going to start to achieve what you're really here for. And in the process, you're going to help the world come alive too. So what I'd like you to do now is go to the website energydiamond.com and log on with the details that you've been registered with, and go and fill in the Atmoscape or Social DNA questionnaire and see what the weather is like in your life, see what your priority is, and go out and start attending to it and connect in with those people who are similar, complementary and opposite to you. Go and get the support that you need. Go and get the challenge that you need to stretch you and improve your capacities, and go and get some reflection to help you make the right choices in life. Just by doing these things on a daily basis, you literally will shift what you have resonance with within yourself and around you. You'll shift the vibration at which you're operating in your life. You'll even shift the vibration of people around you, and you could go on to even shift the vibration of the whole of the planet.